What's up guys, we're back with another video. I told you I'm getting that content out, so I filmed 2 videos in a day. Here's the second one. In today's video, we're gonna be looking at and discussing tips and tricks for the Hoka Half Marathon, which is 12 weeks away. If you're in Sydney, Australia, which I think many of my viewers are, and definitely the majority of the clients I coach are, the Hoka Half Marathon is currently 12 weeks away. It is on the 4th of May. And I personally have my biggest team yet of people going into that race. And I am sure a hell of a lot of you watching this, all my followers, etc. on Instagram are also doing it. Pretty much all of Sydney is doing it by the looks of it. So here are some tips and tricks for that race that is coming up. Some things I learned from the race last year, which I highly recommend you take note of. If this is your first race, obviously just have fun, but you may learn something right now. So here's some tips that you may want to write down and remember for later. Nonetheless, let's not talk any more shit. Let's just dive right into it. The Hoka Half Marathon is 21.1 kilometers around the beautiful city of Sydney, my hometown, and it has around, I don't know, I think last year was 20,000 entrants. It's a pretty big race. It's probably the biggest one in Sydney right now, other than the Sydney Marathon, which this year is, I think, invite or ballot entry only. So you can't just enter it, you have to get picked. But the Hoka Half Marathon is open for anyone. So there's people of all shapes and sizes, all skill levels doing it, which is awesome. And all kinds of skill levels of my clients are doing it. I have people that have never done a race before doing it. I have people that just want to have fun doing it. I have people that want to try and hit PBs doing it. It's going to be awesome. People coming back from injury, people getting injured, all kinds of shit. But it's going to be a big race. I've got a lot of people going into it, and there's a lot of things that I learned and wish I did differently last year that I want to share with all of you right now to make sure you guys don't make the same mistakes, or little tips and tricks that you should note that either myself or my clients made or did last year for you guys to take note of. So let's start with some of those. Okay, so there's a few things here I want to mention. The first thing being, if this is your first race, please enjoy it and just have fun. Don't get so worked up and fixated on achieving a time. Have fun. Unfortunately for me, when I first started racing or running, I always had the intention of achieving a goal. And that goal for me, when I did my first half marathon, I was so fixated on getting under 2 hours, which I fortunately did. But it actually took a lot of the fun away from it for me. I wasn't able to really enjoy it on the day. I didn't take it all in. I was really just fixated on getting that time. And that, I think it interrupted, personally, the way I felt about racing. I look back on it now and I feel like it spoiled that race a little bit for me. Your first few runs as a new runner should honestly just be fun. Obviously try to go in there and do as best you can, but don't get so fixated on a fucking time that you spoil it for yourself. So first things first, when you get to this race, enjoy it. Enjoy the crowd, enjoy the people, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy running through the city of Sydney. You're running through tunnels and all kinds of shit that you can only drive a car on normally, and now you're going there on foot, and it's honestly amazing. So please do your best to have fun and just take it all in. Next tip, do your long runs on a Sunday and in race conditions. And here's why. Race is on a Sunday, so I recommend you get practicing. I also recommend you start practicing running early, because the race for the majority of us will start about 6:30, maybe 7 a.m. So if you're not used to getting up early, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to get to the city on time, find where I'm supposed to be, warm up, go to the toilet, blah, blah, blah. By the time you do all that with 20,000 other people around you, 7 a.m. comes up pretty quick. So highly recommend you get used to running early, get used to eating before a race, all things race conditions you want to be prepared for. So, you want to be prepared in the shoes that you're going to run with, the clothes you're going to wear, you want to have worn them before. Whatever you're going to eat before you get to the race. I ate my meal about 2 hours before the race. Obviously didn't eat something big because I didn't want to shit myself. Otherwise, you just want to get ready as best you can in running in Sunday mornings, long runs on a Sunday, race conditions, using gels if that's what you're going to do, which I highly recommend all of you do if you're doing the 21K. It's a pretty long race. Do all that kind of stuff. It'll make your life a lot easier. It'll just leave less surprises on the table when you get there. You want to be as ready as you can be. You want to have ideally done at least close to the half marathon distance in training, so when you get there on the day, it's nothing too stressful. A lot of people will just do like 15 to 16 Ks in training and then they'll go straight into the half marathon, which works fine. For me personally, I get most of my athletes to do a long run at 7 a.m. on a Sunday the full half marathon distance about 2 to 3 weeks out from the race. The reason why is because a lot of the guys I coach are new to running, and I want them to get familiar with running the half marathon distance, and I want them to be as confident as possible going into the race. You do not have to do that. It's just something that I've done with my clients, and it's worked pretty well, and it just helps them have that confidence on the day. So if you're new to running and you're going into your first race, it'll just give you a little bit more confidence on the day, so you're not scared or worried about anything kind of coming up. You've done it all before and you're ready to go. I guess this one's a bit self-explanatory, but at the time I'm making this video, it's 12 weeks out from the race. I think by the time I publish it, we'll be somewhere around the 10-week mark. You should definitely be training for the race from now. If you have not run before or you're new to running, you should be training for the race right now. For a half marathon, if you want to do decently, I would be doing at least 2 to 3 runs a week at a minimum. 2 runs a week at a minimum. 1 run a week, you can probably do it, but it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. Unless you've got running experience in the past or you do other sports that require a lot of fitness, tennis, etc. But if you're new to running, you just go to the gym, whatever, you haven't run before, never done a half marathon before, you want to be doing at least 2 to 3 runs a week. Again, doing that long run on a Sunday if you can, just get you ready for the race as much as possible. In terms of the weekly kilometers and mileage you should be doing, there's no rule of thumb. Obviously, the amount of Ks you do in a week is going to be dependent on your skill level, but what you want to do is start somewhat low now, or around the low area, and then work your way up. You should peak at about the 10-week mark, and then you want those last 2 weeks to kind of taper down for the race. So right now, if you're getting ready for that race, the next 10 weeks should be pretty much solid race prep, where your volume is picking up each week, as well as the intensity of some of your runs. Last year, I had a goal of getting the half marathon done in under an hour and 40, closer to an hour 35. I think I finished my race time at like an hour 40 and 44 seconds. So I didn't get my target. And here is one of the reasons why. Other than the fact I obviously just wasn't fast enough on the day, but there are a couple mistakes that I made that I think I learned from afterwards that I don't think I'll ever make again. And they've kind of prepared me for all races in the future, including this race coming up especially. Look at the course map. The Hoka Half Marathon is actually a pretty hard race. If you haven't looked at the course overview, I'll probably have it on the screen here somewhere for you to look at yourself. But there is quite a bit of incline and not a lot of decline on this run. So you're going to be doing incline for quite a while. In fact, I've got the course map on my computer right now. Pretty much from kilometer 15 to 20 is all uphill, or very uphill. Keep that in mind, okay? Because you're not going to be running as fast as you would if you're running on a flat surface from that 15 to 20 kilometer mark. Unless you're an elite level runner, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking to those people right now. I'm talking to us beginners to intermediates. That 15 to 20 kilometer mark is fucking tough. And obviously it's towards the end of the race as well, so you're already pretty cooked. So a couple things you should be doing to prepare for that elevation, okay? You need to be doing some kind of hills in your current training program. Where you run, don't run in flat surfaces all the time. Get used to running with some hills because there are hills in this race. Accept the fact that you are going to be slower on those hills as well. So if you have a time you want to achieve, you should pre-plan for that and be like, okay, if I'm going to be slower from kilometer 15 to 20, which is for most people how it's going to be because it is very inclined on some bits, you may need to have a slightly faster pace in the kilometers before that. So kilometers 5 to 15, you want to be pumping it as much as you can so you can take into account that you're going to be a little bit slower from 15 onwards. In addition to that, last year a mistake I made is I had a gel at kilometer 15 and I then went up those hills for pretty much 5Ks. I'm not trying to exaggerate, but there are some very solid inclines from that 15 to 20 kilometer mark. If that's the case and you've just had a gel like me, which happened to me last year, I got a stitch like a motherfucker and I had to actually stop and literally like, fuck. And I was like, and some guy I remember shouted at me like, come on, you can keep going, bro. And I'm like, bro, literally like I had stabbing pains. Because I had to stop and walk, it obviously slowed me down a little bit, which was one of the factors that contributed to the time that I didn't get. I hadn't stopped at all in that race until that moment, which really threw me off. And then after that, I felt like I was just battling demons to finish the race and I was really disappointed in myself. So, I'm not saying that any of you are going to experience anything like that. And, not that we're going for the same thing. But the point is just account for those hills and you may want to just, if you normally have water around that time, you normally have a gel around that time, just keep that in mind. If you're someone that's prone to getting stitches or cramps, the last thing you're going to want to do is smash a gel and then, oh, hectic, I'm going uphill for the next 10 to 15 minutes. You will get a stitch, it will suck, it's not going to go away. You're going to have to pretty much wait till the end of the race for it to fuck off. And that's exactly what happened to me. It slowed me down by like 20, 30 seconds per kilometer, which really, really ruined my race time. This year, I am not making that same mistake. This year, I am going to most likely have a gel a little bit earlier, and then the gel that I have while I'm going on those inclines is gonna be extremely minimal. I'm actually gonna open the gel up. This is just my strategy, and I've spoken to a couple other way better runners than me, and they did something similar. Elite level runners could probably go this whole thing without a gel, by the way. So I'm gonna open the gel up, and I'm gonna do very small little sips, maybe every 500 meters. That gel is likely gonna be in my hand for that 4 or 5Ks the whole time. I have no intention of finishing it during that time because I don't want a stitch to occur. That's me. Whatever you want to do, you're going to have to practice in training, which is why I recommend getting as much practice you can on hills and, running on those Sunday mornings in full race conditions, using gels, wearing the same outfit, whatever it is. Because the Hoka Half Marathon is on main roads, going all through the city of Sydney, those roads are quite wide. Some of them are highways where, you've got 4 lanes across or 6 lanes across, whatever it is. When you're going around a turn, the wider you take the turn, the more distance you travel. The narrower you take the turn, the less distance you travel. Always run on the inside. One of my clients last year, she was not going for like super fast times or anything like that, by the way. This was her first race. She wanted to stay out of people's way, so she went on the outside of the majority of turns in that race. I'll try and get a screenshot before this video is posted. I hope I do. If I don't, she ran 23.5 kilometers on race day. The race is 21.1 kilometers. She somehow added 2.4 kilometers to her total distance covered. I have no idea how that happened, other than the fact that she took the outside on the majority of the turns that she took during the race. She definitely didn't go backwards and forwards. I've seen her Strava, I promise you. She went one direction from start to finish. She ran the exact same race as me, except I finished with 21.2 or 3 it was in the end. She finished with 23.5. because she ran on the outside. That added 2 point something Ks to her run, which then added, an extra, I think 15 or so minutes more for her. So if this is your first run, and this probably applies to any race that you do that has a lot of turns in it like this one, take the inside, don't go on the outside, okay? The people behind you can go around you, fuck them. Just take the inside. Please, do yourself a favor. What running shoes should you wear? Honestly, it's up to you. I'm running in those carbon plated race shoes. I haven't decided which shoes I'm gonna wear. The main recommendation here is whatever shoes you wanna run in, get them now, okay? If you're running in carbon plated shoes, you're not gonna train in them for the next 12 weeks. Do not train in them for the next 12 weeks. Whatever you do not train in them. Just have 1 or 2 runs in them just to make sure you get a feel for them. You really don't need to be using them all the time. Just get a feel for them, break them in a little bit, make sure they feel good. Maybe they give you blisters in a little spot. Just take note of that. Okay, I get blisters here, I'll put a Band-Aid there. So, because I get blisters sometimes on my pinky toe when I wear my race shoes, I make sure that I've got a Band-Aid on my pinky just before I go into the race, just so I'm not like in pain while I'm running. Little things like that, you just want to tease out now. So do a couple runs in your race shoes if you're getting carbon plated ones. If you're not getting carbon plated ones and you're just gonna run whatever runners you're gonna get, go for it, that's fine too. But just start running in them now and start training in those shoes now. You don't want to leave it for 1 to 2 weeks out. So whatever shoes you're going to be running in, get them now. They're carbon plated. If you're going to be running in like normal shoes, normal everyday runners, whether they be Asics Kayanos or whatever, Nike Pegasus, whatever you run in, you can wear those pretty much all the time. So start getting some practice in them now. Break them in as much as you can so they're ready to go on race day. Do you get blisters at this point? How tight should you have your shoelaces? All that kind of stuff, because it's going to make a difference to how you feel on race day when you're running. You want as little things to worry about as you can, other than completing the distance. All right, so that is pretty much everything for the Hoka Half Marathon. Those are some notes and points that I wrote down actually last year, and I wanted to make sure I got them out at some point in terms of content for everyone. Everyone's race experience is going to be different, so please don't use the words I say today as gospel. They're not the only rules that apply to this race. When I mention the stuff about the gels, that is my experience. You may not have that problem whatsoever. So don't think that I'm trying to put fear into you. It is just my experience and the experience of a couple of my clients. I just want to make sure as little people have the same problems as me as last year. So nonetheless, if you need help with preparing for this race, you can contact me for coaching, hybrid coaching available for anyone, anywhere in the world. All you got to do is reach out to me and I'll do the rest. Otherwise, if you're preparing for this race and you have questions or you're unsure of how to do things, comment below, DM me, ask me. It's fine. It's not going to cost you anything to ask me a question. I'm always happy to help people. Other than that, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're preparing for this race, best of luck. I know you're going to do amazingly well. More content coming your way this year. Thank you so much for watching once again. I'll see you guys next time.